Welcome to Mark D. Maker. My name's Mark Taylor. In this video, we'll be finishing up. We'll be doing the final paint job, all detail work on the owl. Coming in with a yellow straw color here, painting the feet. Now, I've really kind of been very vague and almost abbreviated with this paint job. Painting can take as long, if not longer, than the carving itself. So I'm considering a Patreon page later on, and I will go into much more detail about painting, color theory. There's just so much. It's hard to fit it into a video like this. And if you're not particularly interested in being that specific, it wouldn't be a very popular video. So I'm going to make it a Patreon later on. So the paint I'm using is a Liquitex soft body paint. To do most of the bird, it's simply ultramarine blue and burnt umber. It gives you all different shades of grays, from black to a light gray. If you mix also a little bit of white gesso with it, it can give you these beautiful earth tone browns in all different shades, just by adding a little bit of white or not adding white at all. I don't use any black. Here I have a very fine detail brush. And I use that detail brush to put in all these little white lines that you see here to kind of break up the base colors that I have on there. And the white lines are simply following the burn marks. By following the burn marks with these, they're almost dry brushed. I go in, load the brush with white paint, wipe it off before I put it onto the bird, and just pull these little white lines right along the texture lines, and it gives a very natural look to it. Alright, we're going to clean up the paint off of the eyes. Now this is a paintbrush and it has a cut and angled tip on it that's polished so it won't scratch. You could use toothpicks or a barbecue skewer that's made out of bamboo. That's usually what I use, but I had this handy and I knew it wasn't going to scratch the eye. So the acrylic doesn't stick to glass. Acrylic paint won't, so it comes right off. It scrapes right off. Really adds a lot of attitude to the bird. Brings it to life when you clear the eyes like this. Now a little tip I learned from Ben. He's got a YouTube video studio on the lake, and he carves birds. And he says if he scratches one of these glass eyes, he can take fingernail polish over top of it, and it makes that scratch disappear. Usually I end up digging the eye out and completely replacing it, but definitely giving the clear fingernail polish a try next time. Who you looking at? Yeah, his eyes look a lot better now. So this is matte medium. I used some matte medium on the beak. It gives a little bit of shine in it, but not too much. It's not a gloss by any means, but it gives a little bit of natural shine. I'll use it on the claws and go back and do a second coat on the beak, and it'll make it look more realistic. So from all the years of carving, all the years that I have been carving, I used to have a huge array of paints and a huge array of brushes. But what I've noticed is I only really use about 6 different colors and 3 to 4 different brushes. The colors, I have them lined up there. And like I say, I'll get into that later on in a Patreon, along with the different brushes that I use. Well, all the brushes that you're seeing, the blue one, the one with the blue handle there, is a 1/2-inch oval wash. And that wash brush is what you lay the color on with, also what I seal it with, also what I put the gesso on with. A number 6 round is what I do most of the detail with. Oh, let me show you this gesso bottle here. See these little crumblies that dry up here? Definitely want to keep that off and out of your paint. Those little things can cause a real problem with your paint. I'm trying to figure out a different kind of container to keep that gesso in so it doesn't happen. So I don't want to end up with that issue. So a number 6 round is what I do the majority of my painting with, and then I have a couple of detail brushes that are just cheap hobby store brushes that I picked up. Now, a lot of the trick for realism and making these feather lines look like they blend is pulling one into the other, pulling the lights into the dark and pulling the dark into the lights. And that's exactly what I'm doing right there. Now, here I'm trying to figure out this area right here on the wing is really a light color with but you can see there's dark feathers behind the lighter feathers that are on top. So I've decided to dry brush. And this is a technique where you put your paint onto the brush and then wipe most of it off and drag it across, and you can see the detail of the burning underneath. So the most forward texture of this wing is white, and then the details of the burning are dark. So you can see the underlying each feather where it's cut out, and all the little burn marks that indicate each feather turn out dark. It's a nice effect. Here's some more dry brushing. Getting right down on that shadow line. The shadow line will still be visible. It'll just have that white dry brush over top. Here I'm utilizing study reference. This is Floyd Schultz's book, Owls. There's some beautiful reference shots in here. And I'm looking at the inside wing stripes and putting those in best I can. I'm using an old, worn out number 6 paintbrush. It's all flared out. I never throw an old paintbrush away. I use them as either dry brush or texture brushes. And this one works really nice as a dry brush, and it puts those little stripes in really well. Trying to, I go in with a stipple effect more or less, stippling along, and then I will come back and try to, with a flat brush, and follow the burn marks to make it look as natural as possible. That stipple effect works really well here. The gist there was I was going in with white paint and went a little too thick, too heavy in an area. And so I got a brush, dampened it, got it wet, brushed it off on that newsprint paper that I have laid out there, and just wiped over it with that damp paintbrush, and it diluted it and took it down. It was ended up with good results to an issue that I had. So this is a little raw sienna and white, and my attempt is to go in and just warm certain areas. A general rule is you warm the hills and cool the valleys. And there's some areas on the bird that are just a little too white, and so this will mute it, take it down just a little bit. Here I'm going in on the back of the tail feathers. There's two white stripes and one stripe that goes across the very tip of the feathers that's white. I'm putting those in. You can really see that putting in these stripes makes a huge difference. It breaks up these solid colors and makes it look more realistic. And here I'm doing the underside of the tail with the white stripe. Really makes a big difference. I have had people ask me multiple times, how come you work on the floor? I prefer working on the floor. It gives me a huge area to work on. I have work tables and work desks and everything, but the floor is huge. It's expansive and gives me freedom to place my things where I want them, and I have all this reference. Now here's a raw sienna, and the raw sienna goes in. I'll be wiping most of it off, but it adds depth. It gets into all those little holes that we created way back when we were putting holes in the epoxy. These birds are birds of prey. That's the business end. That's the killing machine. Their claws and their feet do get stained with blood. And it gets in all the cracks and crevices and makes it darker. That's just the fact of an animal that hunts for a living. So it's a realistic detail. Here I'm going around the eyes. If you look at my reference material, around the eyes is dark and mine were more brown. And so I'm going around it right now with a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt umber, which gives a very black look, right over top of the eyes, right over top of the glass. And later, after it dries, I'll scrape the glass clean again. I'm going in with the white markings on the head. Now this is sped up 2 times the speed. It does take time to do this. You're constantly referring to your reference material. You don't have to be perfect. Every single bird is a little bit different. I have several different books out with several different birds, and they all have different markings. So you're looking for the best artistic approach, something you think will have the best results, best impact, maybe even the most dramatic. Depends on what you're going for. Now here I'm going in, there's this detail around the eye, these feathers that almost look like hairs, and they come out from the darkness surrounding the eye and head towards the beak, and they almost look like eyelashes. So it's a very interesting detail. I really didn't notice it until really studying the face up close. And so yeah, we'll put in the eyelashes. Alright, so I'm doing the back of the wing, and the back of the wing does have a pattern here. And I'm going to use a combination of different pictures of different owls and even a carving of one. And I'm going to combine those to get what I think is the best combination of spots, stripes all across the back of the bird in a realistic manner, making it look as realistic as possible. Now this bird is not for a competition, so I'm not extremely worried about all the really high-end details. This is going to be an art piece. It's going to be a wall hanging, and we won't even see the back of it. The back of it is literally going to be against the wall. But I want to make it as realistic as I can. Alright, so from different reference, I came up with these white stripes across the back of the wing. And I'm just, on these little feathers here, trying to go with the direction of the burn marks. So it literally looks more natural, it looks more realistic. And just touching up these little white spots here to make them more prominent. And these are really just a suggestion of markings that are in this area. I did every other feather just so it's not too overwhelming there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the final on the owl. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.